The earth holds secrets buried deeper than oceans and mountains. Legends passed from one generation to the next speak of nations unseen, locked away behind a barrier no man has crossed for centuries. Their names carry dread Yajuj and Majuj. To some they are myth, to others prophecy, but to the believers, their story is preserved in the Qur'an. A story that begins with a traveler, a wall, and a warning for the end of time. Until, when he reached between two mountains, he found beside them a people who could hardly understand speech. They said, "O Dhul-Qarnayn, indeed Gog and Magog are corruptors in the land. So may we assign for you an expenditure that you might make between us and them a barrier." Surah Al-Kahf 1893, centuries before our time. There lived a mighty ruler known as Dhul-Qarnayn. His power stretched across lands east and west, his authority unmatched. Yet his rule was not like that of tyrants. He was a man guided by faith, justice, and mercy. His journeys brought him across deserts, oceans, and mountains, until at last he reached a valley between two towering peaks. There he encountered a people who spoke in a tongue barely understood. Their faces carried fear, their voices trembled. They told him of a terror that lived beyond their mountains, Yajuj and Majuj. Wild tribes who ravaged the earth, destroying crops, spilling blood, and leaving only desolation behind. They begged him to protect them, offering wealth, gold, and treasures. But Dhul-Qarnayn refused payment. "What my Lord has given me," he said, "is better than what you offer. But bring me your strength, and together we will build a barrier." And so it began. The construction of a wall unlike any seen before. Massive sheets of iron were raised between the mountains, layer upon layer, until the valley was sealed. Then Dhul-Qarnayn ordered molten copper poured over the iron, fusing it into an impenetrable shield. The fire roared, the earth shook, and when it cooled, the wall stood, a barrier that swallowed the horizon. Yajuj and Majuj threw themselves against it, clawing, digging, and climbing, but they could not overcome it. Their fury echoed behind the mountains, but the people were safe. Yet Dhul-Qarnayn gave a warning. "This barrier will stand only until the time decreed by God. When the hour approaches, my Lord will level it to the ground, and Yajuj and Majuj will surge forth across the earth." The prophecy was clear. The wall was not eternal. A day would come when the barrier would crumble, and the hordes locked away for centuries would flood the world. Their emergence would be a sign of the last day. Since that time, the wall of Yajuj and Majuj has remained hidden from the eyes of men. Explorers have searched, storytellers have imagined, but its true location remains veiled by divine decree. Scholars debate whether it lies in the Caucasus, Central Asia, or somewhere unknown to maps. But believers know this: when the appointed hour arrives, no wall will stand against them. In every generation, whispers of Yajuj and Majuj stir fear. Are they human? Are they nations lost to time? Or something far more terrifying? What is known is this: their numbers are vast beyond imagination, their destruction unmatched, their hunger insatiable. They are not bound by treaties, not restrained by mercy. The Quran describes them as corruptors upon the earth, a tide of chaos awaiting its release. For centuries, the wall has stood as both protection and warning. As the world advances in wealth and power, the prophecy lingers, reminding humanity that no fortress of stone or steel can outlast the decree of God. When the hour comes, Yajuj and Majuj will rise, and their coming will shake the very foundations of civilization. Thus begins their story, not yet unleashed, but prophesied, not yet seen but feared. Behind the mountains they wait, clawing at their prison, until the day when the wall collapses and the final chapter of humanity begins. The world will not end in silence. Before the last day, signs will shake the earth, terrify nations, and leave humanity trembling. Among the greatest of these signs is the release of Yajuj and Majuj, the moment when the barrier built by Dhul-Qarnayn collapses, unleashing chaos unlike anything the world has ever seen, until, when the wall was opened, Yajuj and Majuj would come forth from every elevation, and the true promise has approached. Surah Al-Anbiya 21:96-97. For centuries, their fury has been muffled behind the wall of iron and copper. They claw at it day after day, generation after generation. The Prophet Muhammad, dubbed peace and blessings be upon him, told his companions that every day Yajuj and Majuj dig into the wall until they nearly break through. Exhausted, they stop, saying, "We will return tomorrow to finish." But when they return, the wall has been restored by God, stronger than before. This cycle will continue until the appointed time. On that day, by the will of God, they will return to find the wall as they left it. Their claws and tools will dig through until the final barrier falls. Then the ground will tremble, and the wall that held them back for millennia will crumble into dust. When the wall collapses, Yajuj and Majuj will surge like a flood. Their numbers will be beyond imagination. The prophet described them as waves upon waves, countless as the stars. They will pour forth from every mountain, every valley, swarming across the earth. The Qur'an tells us they will come from every elevation, unstoppable, uncontainable, spreading in all directions. The devastation will be swift. They will strip the land of resources, devour crops, drink rivers dry. It is said they will reach Lake Tiberias in Palestine, the Sea of Galilee, and drink it until not a drop remains. When the last of them arrives, he will cry out, "There was once water here." Such will be their hunger and their number. Nations will crumble before them. No fortress, no army, no weapon will hold them back. Their corruption will leave nothing but ruins in their wake. Humanity will tremble, and the world will groan under their weight. In those days, the believers will be led by Isa, son of Maryam, Jesus, peace be upon him. Having returned to earth as a sign of the final hour, he will guide the faithful with strength and wisdom. But even he will not fight Yajuj and Majuj directly. For this is not a war of men, but a decree of God. The prophet described that Isa will lead the believers to the mountains, taking refuge in fortresses of stone and caves of safety. From their heights, they will watch as Yajuj and Majuj sweep across the plains like locusts, consuming everything in sight. The believers will feel trapped, their provisions scarce, their hearts heavy with fear. So intense will be the terror that Isa and his followers will raise their hands to the heavens in desperate prayer, calling for deliverance. And the deliverance will come, not through swords, not through arrows, but through a punishment sent by the Lord of the worlds. God will unleash upon Yajuj and Majuj a plague, a disease that strikes them suddenly, seizing their necks. Their mighty armies will collapse where they stand, their waves of destruction halted in an instant. The earth will fall silent. From the mountains, the believers will look upon the plains and see nothing but lifeless bodies stretching to the horizon. The world, once drowned in chaos, will breathe again, but the trial will not yet be over. Their corpses will cover the land, and the stench will fill the air. The believers, unable to bury such countless numbers, will turn once again in prayer, and in response, God will send birds with necks like camels, who will carry away the bodies, dropping them wherever he wills. Then the earth will be washed clean by rain, until it is as pure as glass. Only then will humanity descend from the mountains, stepping cautiously onto soil that had just tasted the end of the world. The believers will find peace again, but they will never forget the terror they had witnessed. Yajuj and Majuj will remain etched in memory as a warning that when arrogance and corruption are unchained, nothing can stop them except the command of God. Thus ends their emergence, not with the triumph of human armies, but with the justice of divine power. Yajuj and Majuj, who once terrified nations and ravaged the earth, will be erased in a moment, leaving behind a silence more haunting than their chaos. History is full of empires that rose and fell. Pharaohs built monuments, kings raised armies, and conquerors believed their power eternal. But all were brought low. Yet among all the tales of human arrogance, none is as terrifying as the prophecy of Yajuj and Majuj. For they are not merely tribes locked away in some forgotten valley. They are a warning carved into the destiny of mankind, a shadow of what corruption looks like when unrestrained. So leave them to converse vainly and amuse themselves until they meet their day which they are promised. Surah Al-Zukhruf 4:3583. The story of Yajuj and Majuj is more than just an account of two nations. It is a mirror for humanity. Behind the wall, they remain locked not because of human engineering alone, but because God decreed it so. When the appointed time comes, no iron barrier, no molten copper, no fortress of steel will stop them. This teaches us a simple truth. Human strength, no matter how great, is powerless without the protection of God. When they finally emerge, their corruption will reflect the worst of human greed. They will consume without restraint, destroy without reason, and leave nothing behind but emptiness. In their hunger, we see a lesson for our own age. Every time people pursue wealth without justice, power without mercy, or growth without balance, they echo the corruption of Yajuj and Majuj. The prophet described their numbers as overwhelming, so vast that no army could face them. At the end of time, their release will remind humanity of its smallness. Modern man, proud of his machines, his weapons, his cities reaching the clouds, will see how fragile his systems truly are. Yajuj and Majuj will break the illusion of control, showing that no nation, no technology, no empire is unshakable before the command of God. But perhaps the most important lesson is this: the end will not be defeated by human hands. Even Isa, the son of Mary, who returns to earth to restore justice, will not fight them with the sword. Instead, he will lead the believers to prayer, to patience, to trust in the divine decree. Their destruction will come not through human brilliance, but through God's will. A reminder that salvation lies not in our armies, but in our faith. After their death, the earth will be cleansed, the skies washed, and the believers will descend from their refuges. But even then, their memory will linger. Parents will tell their children of the hordes that once shook the world, and scholars will remind their students of the prophecy. The tale of Yajuj and Majuj will serve as one of the final lessons before the day of judgment itself. For their release is not the end, but a sign that the end is near. The Quran connects their emergence to the approach of the true promise, the final hour. When they are gone, the clock of humanity will tick closer to its last moments. The trumpet will be blown, the heavens will tear apart, and the earth will give up its burdens. Their story is not just history waiting to happen, but a signal that time itself is running out. And what does that mean for us, here and now, as we live in a world where the wall still stands? It means vigilance. It means reflection. It means remembering that every act of arrogance, every betrayal of justice, every corruption that spreads unchecked, carries within it the spirit of Yajuj and Majuj. The barrier that Dhul-Qarnayn built was not only of iron and copper. It was also a symbol of restraint, of discipline, of protecting the world from chaos. When we abandon those values, when we let corruption and greed run free, we allow pieces of that wall to crumble in our own time. Yet, for the believer, the prophecy is not one of despair, but of clarity. It reminds us that the world is temporary, that no power endures forever, and that the final victory belongs only to God. While the thought of Yajuj and Majuj terrifies the imagination, it also strengthens the faith, for it shows that even the most unstoppable of forces are still in his control. When the last day comes, people will remember them as the storm before the silence, the tide that proved humanity's weakness, and the sign that reminded the faithful to hold firmly to their Lord. Yajuj and Majuj will leave no legacy of culture, no monuments of beauty, no wisdom worth remembering. Their legacy will only be a warning. This is what happens when corruption has no bounds. But in that warning lies the greatest lesson, that true strength is not in walls of iron, armies of steel, or riches beyond count. True strength lies in justice, mercy, humility, and the remembrance of God. Thus ends the story of Yajuj and Majuj. Locked behind the wall by the decree of God, released as a sign of the final hour, destroyed by his power, and remembered as a mirror for humanity's own arrogance. They are not just a prophecy of terror, but a reminder of where unchecked corruption leads, and of who truly holds power over the fate of the world. And when the earth breathes its last, and all creation stands before its Lord, the memory of Yajuj and Majuj will stand as testimony that God's promise is true, his power infinite, and his justice absolute.